God was literally standing at that door of my home, my heart, and kind of like, are you going to let me in? Do you really think that you can figure this out on your own? Do you really think that you can clean up this mess on your own? And the reality kind of settled in to me of, I really can't. I really can't sort through this pain and this anger on my own.
Welcome to the Snapshot Testimony Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So when you think about these moments, and they make up a life of faith, when we go back over our journey with the Lord, there are so many of them. What one comes to mind for you, a pivotal moment that shaped your faith?
The very first one that came to my mind was actually when my stepdad passed away from Parkinson's disease. And he was a worshiper, and a worshiper, not like someone on a stage, with a big talent where everyone sees them, hears them, all those things. He was just a worshiper at home every single day, getting up before the sun, turning on worship music, worshiping, praying out loud, always his prayers, reading his Bible, and really showing me what a life with Jesus looks like outside of a Sunday morning and a routine of that sort. And when he passed away, he was still even up to his moment of passing, he was still declaring that God is a healer and still declaring the goodness of God, even in that moment. And after he passed, it was a really pivotal moment for me, just as a Christ follower, but also as a worship leader, thinking about, gosh, I'm getting up on a stage, I'm singing songs about who God is, about healing, and we didn't experience that. And no one really likes to talk about, when you don't get the answer that you want or
Sure.
desire. It's a tough thing to talk about, especially because honestly, there aren't really any really great answers. And I had to really sort through that with the Lord and kind of decide where I would fall, where I would stand and believe in that. And that was just a really significant moment for me in solidifying um, what I decide about Jesus, that he is who he says he is, even when we don't have the outcome that we hoped for or desire.
Yeah. What stage of life was this for you? Was this recent, or is this going back some years?
This is going back about 9 years ago. I had just had my second son, and shortly after is when he passed. And my stepdad was really significant in my life because he came into my life when I was just about 12 years old.
Okay.
And he was the one who got us going to church. And the reason I'm a Christian was because of him. And so
Okay, wait. You got to tell me that story.
yeah, so my parents divorced when I was 4, and I had a few stepfathers actually before him. And it's funny. My mom, she was raised Christian. We went to church sometimes, but in my mind, I just thought church is just something that good people went to sometimes. Like I didn't really understand any kind of significance of God, and I can't say that I really knew who Jesus was. I just kind of thought maybe there's a God out there, and I don't really understand church. But when he came into our lives, he was just this really solid Christian and a really incredible guy. I had been abused by stepfathers before him,
Mm,
and it took me kind of a bit to accept him because I kind of thought you're going to be like the other men and
right.
hurt us and leave us. But he was just so kind and loving and stable and really showing me the love of Jesus before I really knew who Jesus was. And the other really great thing about him was that, after he passed, I said to the Lord, there's one thing I really wanted to ask George that I never got to ask him. And it was just, why did you marry my mom? And I didn't mean it in a bad way. Like my mom she's beautiful. She's just an amazing woman. She's also a worship leader. She's a singer. She's just very talented, very beautiful, very wonderful woman. But they obviously had made some mistakes. She had a few kids. We had different dads. I we were not really the easiest kids either. We kind of been through a lot, and she just kind of came with this baggage, and we really kind of put him through it. Like, I was not kind to him when he first came into our lives. And I felt like the Lord said, I sent him for you. And because it just kind of, I couldn't really wrap my mind around this incredible man choosing our family and pulling us out of what we had been in for so long and changed our lives so dramatically. But the Lord, I felt like he said, I did it for you. And that really kind of changed my perspective too of
Wow.
the Lord and the way he really kind of sets up a path in front of us to really keep drawing us to him.
Yeah. No, when he first came into your life and you noticed that there was something different about him over
Hmm.
time, when did you start to have words for what that was? I mean, you didn't start out saying, "Oh, this new guy, he's a worshiper." You wouldn't have even had language for
No,
that. But
no.
when did you start to even have words to describe what it is about him?
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't until I was around like 19 years old because I was just such a hurt, angry girl. I would, as a young girl, as a teenager, I could recognize and verbalize the stability and the safety he brought to our home. He provided for us. We did. There were times before him we went hungry, and we did not go hungry with him. He put us in an actual house. I was living in a house with a bedroom of my own. Like, he bought us new clothes for school. He put us in sports and made sure that we had the best shoes for sports. I mean, he just really took care of us. And I could recognize that the provision, the stability, the safety, and I could recognize that his relationship to God was real, that God was very real to him. And it was the first time that I was really recognizing any sort of relationship with God outside of a Sunday morning and going to church. And I could recognize, like, well, obviously to him, God is so much more real and something beyond church on a Sunday morning. Again, I couldn't say that I really understood that. But when I was 18 is when I finally gave my life to Jesus. It took me a while to come around. I was just so scared to open up my heart and like let my heart be vulnerable. But I finally did at 18. And after that, when I started to actually get healing, and when the Lord started to address and heal the wounds from my childhood inside of me, that's when I really started to come around to see what God had done, sending George to us, and to see that George was truly the one showing me what worship is, that worship isn't someone with a talent on a stage, that worship is our lifestyle and how we do relationship with God on a regular basis. And so it wasn't until that time, actually on the other side of healing, that I could verbalize that I could see that, which was incredible because little did I know how much that would prepare me for my own life. I had no idea this is what God would have me do with my life. But obviously, He sent me just the greatest example and the greatest teacher for worship and for what I would end up doing with my life and career.
Wow. So when did you start to discover your own kind of role as a worshiper, both
Um,
privately and then very publicly?
So, I grew up singing and my whole family was musical. And I did not think it was special because everyone in my family sang. And I just thought everyone in the world must sing because that's just the world I was growing up in. So I never thought that I had a talent or anything special. And when I was in high school, I was in choir my freshman year, and I actually got in trouble and I got kicked out, but I got banned for the rest of high school. So
Wow.
I wasn't doing anything musical, when I was younger, except for George in our lives. We were going to church and we were very involved in church. I was pretty angry about it because I was pretty angry at God still at this point. But my mom would often push me up on the worship team and make me sing with her. So I'm standing on the stage singing these songs, just kind of doing what I'm told. And my mom, her happiness was really important to me. And so I knew how happy it made her for me to be singing with her. But worship did not become something real or really understood to me until obviously I had my radical conversion and my life changed by Jesus and really surrendering my life to him. And then it was in my like early mid 20s when I started slowly stepping into worship leading and suddenly found myself. I always say I I was just focused on following Jesus. And just like it says in Proverbs, man makes his plans, but the Lord aligns his steps. And I feel like that's how it was for me. I was just following the Lord, and he aligned my steps and led me into worship leading, what I'm doing now. Because this is not what I planned or thought. I was working as a banker. I was processing loans, and I just led worship in my free time as a volunteer because I loved it. And worship was just a part of my life, just a part of my life. So it wasn't until much later that I, kind of found myself in it
Wow.
beyond
Wow.
the volunteer stage.
Yeah. No, one of the things you said early on that struck me was that for George, worship wasn't something that he did publicly. He was not
Correct.
a worship leader. So one of your greatest models wasn't someone who ever sung on a stage. It was just the worship at home, the worship in the course of everyday life. How much of
Yes.
an impact did that make on you in terms of how you view your role now that is very public?
Well, it's really kind of defined what I believe worship is. And I think that one of the unfortunate things that has happened as worship has moved further into the music industry, there's a lot of positive things that have come out of that. But like the negative thing is that I feel like the industry kind of leaked into our Sunday mornings and kind of started kind of showing us or putting in people's minds that worship is more of a spectator type event where people are more watching versus engaging, and that worship is for the talented and for the people with the skill. And what George taught me and what I learned early on, and what was just kind of, I would say, is that the foundation of what I believe about worship is that every single one of us is created to worship and truly called to worship. I mean, the Bible commands us to worship, but it's worship on a Sunday morning is, I don't think it's just to sit and to watch, but to
Right.
engage with the Lord, and it's for all of us. And so this is really that core belief inside of me does affect the way that I lead worship and the way that I hope to engage people wherever I'm leading, be it a Sunday morning or a worship night out on a tour or whatever it is. At the center of all of it is my belief that we're there to engage with Jesus, every single one of us, and that it's for all of us to do, not just someone with an ability to sing.
Yeah. Now, by the time you were walking through with George's illness and then his
Mhm.
passing, your faith was obviously at a much stronger place,
Yeah.
but that sort of a significant loss can knock back even
Yes.
the strongest. How did you process the loss and you always pray for the healing, and then in this case it didn't come on this side of heaven. How did that
Yeah.
how did you process that?
It really rattled me, and it wasn't that I felt this, I'm walking away from Jesus. It wasn't that extreme, but it was very much where I was questioning the Lord. Are you really good? Are you really kind? Um, do you answer prayer still? Like, are you really these things that you say you are? And I also just had anger towards the Lord and frustration, like, well, geez, of all the people in the world, like, he was such a good man and such a kind man and such a loving man. Like, I don't think that he deserved that. I don't think he deserved to have this very dehumanizing sickness come over him and ravage his body and put him through that. He was in so much pain, and it was all this, kind of frustration, honestly, with the Lord, that I did feel at one point. The funny thing was, there's like these two sides to me. This side that's just really hurt, really angry, really frustrated, confused, not really sure what to think or to believe. And this other side of me that just wanted to be a good girl and not upset God, and almost like I recognize this mess inside of my heart right now. And I was kind of holding God at a distance, going, I should sort out this mess. Like almost like before I have such an honored guest in my home, I should
Yeah.
clean my home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
And so I felt this strange, like I put this distance between me and God while I'm somehow trying to sort through this mess on my own out of love and respect for God. Um, and then one day I just felt like God was literally standing at that door of my home, my heart, and kind of like, are you going to let me in? Do you really think that you can figure this out on your own? Do you really think that you can clean up this mess on your own? And the reality kind of settled in to me of, I really can't. I really can't sort through this pain and this anger on my own. And what I experienced was Jesus stepping into that with me, and Jesus not running away from my anger, not punishing me for my anger. I
Yeah.
experience the love of God, and the Jesus who meets me in that pain and meets me in that mess, and kind of sat with me in that and helped me work my way out of that at a pace that was right for me. I
Yeah.
didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel pressure. I just felt like I could just talk to Jesus about it and work through it at the pace I needed. And it was a really challenging time, but also, honestly, a really sweet time because it solidified something inside of me, that I don't need to be perfect. And I think I put that pressure on myself a lot. That was that holding him at a distance, trying to perfect myself and realizing, well, that's the work of the cross, that we can't make ourselves perfect.
Right.
We can't
Right.
make ourselves clean. We can't make ourselves any of those things. And that was just a good revelation that I needed. The work of the cross is not just for my point of salvation, but it's for my actual walk with Jesus. So
Yeah. That's
yeah.
awesome. And I know so much of your music, there's an honesty that comes through, and your latest album, you said that it's kind of like there's a victory element to it
Yes.
that
Mhm.
is not totally new, but maybe a different sound from what you've had before.
Yeah.
It kind of,
Mhm.
I'm sure you can describe that much better than I can.
Yeah, so as a, creative and a songwriter, oftentimes it is pretty typical that we will write songs when we're in the process. It's almost
Yeah.
like our way of kind of verbally processing whatever it is we're walking through or whatever it is we're sorting out with the Lord. And this project has felt really different for me because I feel like these last 3 years, well, 3.5, we made a really big transition in our lives. My family and we moved states. I left the ministry that I was a part of for over 20 years. Not in any, it always sounds negative, but not in any negative sense. It was just a new season, time to go into something new. But that was so hard, obviously. I mean, over 20 years. So it's like just a huge transition. And I feel like I kind of came into this wilderness that I was trying to sort through a lot of things and also going, I know that there's something new ahead. And I feel like you're preparing me for whatever it is. But gosh, it feels a little terrifying.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that season of working it all out, I feel like that's where I wrote the songs. The songs were in the victory on the other side of me looking back and going, wow, I just learned some things. I just figured some things out. I just sorted some things out. And so the songs um, feel really declarative and really kind of like a statement of I figured this out. I sorted this out. So yeah, that's this. The new album Trample is that the songs written on the other side in the victory.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add that maybe we haven't touched on or that you're excited for?
Um, I'm just excited for what's next. I know that you know, I've been doing quite a bit of traveling lately, and I know that it's very easy to look at the world to look at the news, to look at the headlines, to get on social media and see a lot of negativity. But as a Christ follower, I feel really excited about what Jesus is doing right now. I know that there's a lot of things that are really hard, that are really painful. I know that there's a lot of people who are walking through some challenging things right now, but I feel like God is just really preparing the bride. And I don't think it's an easy process. I think it can be a painful process, especially the cleansing, especially the preparation. But I actually just feel a lot of excitement about what God is doing, and I feel a lot of excitement that as a worship leader and a Christ follower, that I get to partner with Him in bringing heaven to earth. And so I think these are exciting times to live in, actually. So that doesn't really have anything to do with the new album or anything
that's
else,
awesome,
except
though.
that that's what's in my heart right now.
It's a good thing to hear the excitement that though the
Mhm.
days are dark, we don't, as
Yeah.
Christ followers, have to be discouraged because the victory's already been won.
Yep. Yes. And we
Amen.
know the end of the story. So
Yes.
that is our hope in Jesus, for sure.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much for checking out the Snapshot Testimony podcast. If this story encouraged you, please take a minute, like, comment, subscribe to make sure that you don't miss the next one. And if you know someone who would be encouraged by this story, make sure you share it with them. These stories are what help build each one of our faith in Christ. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.